Economic Survey 25-26 latest news. The Economic Survey 25-26 tabled in Parliament by the Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, reflect on India's post-COVID economic resilience amid rising global geopolitical and economic uncertainties. The preface departs from conventional macroeconomic commentary and makes a strong normative case for transforming India into an entrepreneurial state capable of navigating uncertainty while pursuing the goal of Viksit Bharat. Reconfigured Economic Survey. Structural changes. The Economic Survey 25-26 expanded to 17 chapters, indicating greater depth and breadth. Chapters are rearranged based on national priority and relevance, not conventional. Special essays on evolution of artificial intelligence, quality of life in Indian cities, state capacity, private sector and household in achieving strategic resilience and strategic indispensability. Core theme: entrepreneurial policy making under uncertainty. Fundamental shift in the role of the state from risk-averse, compliance-driven governance to risk structuring, capability-driven and adaptive governance. Key features of an entrepreneurial state: it acts before certainly emerges, structures and manages risk rather than avoiding it. It will learn from systematic experimentation and correct course without policy paralysis. Significance: this vision is presented as practical and already unfolding, not merely aspirational. Early signals of the entrepreneurial state. The survey highlights ongoing initiatives as evidence of this shift. For example, mission mode platforms, example semiconductors, green hydrogen, public procurement reforms, enabling first of a kind domestic innovation, state level deregulation compacts, replacing inspection based control with the trust based compliance. These initiatives mark a transition from regulation to capacity building. India's macroeconomic resilience in a turbulent world. Despite the COVID-19 shock, US tariffs imposed in April 2025, rising global fragmentation, India has demonstrated strong macroeconomic fundamentals. For example, expected real GDP growth of over 7% in 25-26, with momentum continuing into the next year. However, the survey identifies a paradox of 2025. India's strongest macroeconomic performance indicates coincides with a global system that no longer rewards macroeconomic prudence with currency stability, capital inflows, or insulation from shocks. Global headwinds versus India's aspirations. India, with 145 crore people, aims to become a high-income country within a generation, within a democratic framework, a path with no ready-made global template. The survey notes retreat of the global dominant power from earlier commitment, rising trade frictions, geopolitical rivalries, and economic nationalism. These headwinds can become tailwinds only if the state, private sector, and household align and commit to sustained effort. Three possible global scenarios for 2026: managed disorder, less coordinated world, higher risk aversion, integrated yet distrustful global system, narrower margin of safety. Disorderly multipolar breakdown, intensified strategic rivalry, coercive trade, sanctions, supply chain realignments, greater trade-offs between autonomy, growth and stability, systematic shock cascade, low probability, high impact, financial, technological and geopolitical shocks amplify each other, potentially worse than the 2008 global financial crisis. India's relative strength. India is better placed than many countries due to large domestic market, less financialized growth model, strong foreign exchange reserves, credible strategic autonomy. Yet a common risk across all scenarios remains disruption of capital flows, sustained pressure on the rupee, running a marathon and a sprint simultaneously. External sector imperative, rising incomes will inevitably lead to rising imports. Therefore, India must generate export earning and foreign investor confidence. Policy stance for 2026: focus on supply stability, resource buffer, diversification of routes and payment systems, adopt strategic sovereignty, not defensive pessimism. India must run a marathon and sprint simultaneously, or run a marathon as if it were a sprint, maximizing growth while absorbing shocks. Challenges. India's central challenges: policy and process reforms. The survey underlines that policy reforms are necessary and process reforms are even more critical. Why? Processes govern state-citizen interaction. They determine whether policy intent succeed or fails. Positive signals. State-led deregulation and smart regulation and shift from control to enabling governance. Other challenges: global geopolitical fragmentation and economic coercion, capital flow volatility and exchange rate pressures, need for rapid institutional adaptation, balancing growth with resilience and stability. Way forward: integrating three pillars for Viksit Bharat. The survey integrates three pillars: state capacity, societal participation, and deregulation. In a democracy, the state remains the principal development agent but must upskill and reskill, be mentally prepared for a hostile and uncertain global terrain, and adapt to reality that old rules no longer apply. Strategic opportunities amid global crisis. Potential global crisis may open space for India to save the emerging global order and enhance strategic influence and indispensability. This demands the most agile, flexible, and purposeful governance since independence. Delayed gratification over short-term fixes. The survey advocates resilience over quick wins, innovation, and persistence over short-term pressure management. This will help India to stay committed to Viksit Bharat amid prolonged global churn. Other suggestions: deepen entrepreneurial governance, strengthen process reforms and deregulation, build buffers, redundancy and liquidity, align state market and the society towards long-term national goals, invest in state capacity and institutional learning. Conclusion: the Economic Survey 25-26 preface redefines India's economic strategy for an era of uncertainty. It calls for an entrepreneurial, adaptive, and resilient state that can sustain high growth while absorbing shocks in a volatile global order. India's path to Viksit Bharat lies not in quick fixes but in patience, resilience, relentless innovation, and strategic sobriety, running the marathon of development at the pace of a sprint.